Hello, folks. It's Tuesday, November 25th, 2025. As always, it's me, Theodor Vodov, and I'm back with the 65th episode of Keeping It Realistic, a show that, as you well know, is done in collaboration with Chaos and very much dedicated to all of you, the fantastic Chaos Campus community. Welcome everyone to today's episode. No matter if you are live here with us today or watching the recording later, we appreciate you either way. Of course, let's give a special shout out to those of you who show up for the live sessions, because with your presence, you make those sessions more exciting, more interactive, and more unique as well. Let me check the comments and see who is here with us today already. I see a lot of names already watching live. Wucho, David. Let me extract my chat window so that I can better follow it during the show. And then we can start. So just so you know, my friends, today Amit is also here. Of course, it's a business episode, a very important one. So the more, the better. Now, just so you know, my friends, today, I won't be able to interact with you as much as we are all used to, because today we have a very tight schedule to follow. You know about it. I already shared the agenda with you. There are many topics that we need to cover, and we try to finish the show around 6 p.m. So do it within 2 hours, which isn't that much of a time, given that we have many people who have tons of experience to share. Still, I will be following the chat, and my guests also promised to take a look at the comments afterwards, after the show finishes, maybe tomorrow, maybe next week, but they will make sure to go through your comments. So be active. If you have any thoughts to share, do that. But if you have any questions, please keep them for the Q&A section in the end of the show. Now, what's so special about today's show? It's because today, contrary to all the previous episodes where we would always focus on the technical and creative sides of our work, today we will be focusing on one very important aspect of it, the business side of the creative industry or the visualization industry. Something you've been asking for a while, and rightfully so. It's really crucial for your success. And to provide you with as much useful input as possible, I have invited an exceptional panel of professionals who I gathered during the Chaos Connects days in Sofia, and who are very willing to share their experience and knowledge with all of us. So let's not waste any more time and get them into the show. Just let me see the comments. Oh, Nikos is also here. Mick, Leslie, Katzper, so many known faces and lovely people. Ines is here. Hello, Ines. So let me show you my panel for today. We'll start off with a small surprise. Here is Bettina. Initially, you don't see her. Bettina, we don't see you. Oh, here you are.
Hi.
There you go. Initially, we were supposed to have Petter here, but he wasn't able to join us due to personal reasons. But luckily, Bettina, his wife and partner in crime, was cool enough to take his place and share her knowledge with us. So we have a win over here. We also have Mengyi. There she is. Hello, Mengyi.
Hello.
Let me see. Nigel. Hello, Nigel. Hannes. And we were
Hi
also
guys.
supposed to have Ludo Michaud here with us, but he still hasn't arrived. I don't know what has happened, but you see, we have a large panel already, so I think we can start off. And I think before we jump into today's topic, it would be a good thing if you would be so kind to introduce yourselves briefly. So let's maybe start with Mengyi. Would you be so kind?
Yep. So hi everybody. I'm Mengyi Fan. I am the director of visualization at Shop Architects in New York City. So good morning from New York. I'm also one of the co-organizers of 3D New York, which is a local 3D meetup here in New York City that meets once every 2 months. And so at Shop Architects, as a director, I not only work with our team internally to do renderings and animation, but I also work with everybody, in the Viz world to outsource work, get like amazing work from all these artists out there. And also we have been working with a lot of R&D. So that includes working with VR and XR in general, but also understanding how we can bring video game technology and VFX technology into our work day to day.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Who's next? Hannes, please do.
Hi. Well, welcome. Happy to do it. Hi, I'm Hannes. You may have met me before in my function as director at Bloom Images Berlin, which I built for almost a decade. And the last couple of years, I've been busy with narrative in London. And lately, I'm, on my own and sort of like finding my new spot in the industry or adjacent to it, to be honest. I also help Bettina's husband, Peter, organize the Berlin meetup at times. Over the last 2 years, I've been collaborated on that. And I'm really excited to be part of this great group of people having a go at sharing out experiences in the industry over the years.
Fantastic panel. Thank you very much.
Cheers.
Bettina.
Thank you for having me. As I was introduced already, my name is Bettina Ludwig. Good afternoon from Berlin. I am here instead of Peter today. Well, I run Xoyo together with Peter, and basically my job is everything but pixels. So everything that is besides developing images with a mouse in the hand that could be on my desk. And we do this together now for, I would say, almost 15 years. So I hope that I can contribute something valuable to you, and I'm curious to see what happens. Thanks.
Sounds like a perfect match, honestly. Thanks for being here once again, for jumping in for Peter. It's awesome to have you here. Nigel, and by the way, Ludo joined us as well. This is awesome. So now we're
Hi,
all
Ludo.
here. Okay, Nigel, would you introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, hi everyone. I am Nigel Hunt. Have been in the I've been in architecture and in the content creation industry for when I looked at this the other day, it appears to be around 40 years. So I've had my own studio for 20 years. I've had software companies that very long and lengthy career. Been in CGI probably from the beginning, and for the last 10 years. I formed a software company called Sinai Software, which many of you may have heard of or use in your daily work, especially in ArcViz. I also have a visual effects company called Urban Visual Effects, and spin-off from that is a 3D stock library where we sell content to broadcast companies, and also have a magazine, an ArcViz magazine called 3 Disciple, and a bunch of other things involved in running 3D London, mentoring, talking to schools, etc. That's enough from me.
I think you can talk for the whole 2 hours only about all your past endeavors and present ones as well. But this is why it's so awesome.
I've got a whole bar chart there that I could have brought up, that makes me feel old when I see that sort of. Well, let's pass over to Ludo.
Wise and experienced, not old. Ludo.
Yeah.
Ludo. I'm sorry that something didn't turn up right, but you're now here, and this is what matters. Just before you introduce yourself, just so you know, because we have many topics to discuss. So when we start talking about them, we have to limit ourselves a bit. I say it to you also because you're extremely knowledgeable. You have so much experience to share, but we gotta limit ourselves to around maybe 2 minutes per answer or something, because I want to hear from all of you to all the topics that we're gonna discuss. But first, please introduce yourself.
Wait, are you saying I'm talking too much?
Let's start in it.
In a very elegant way, I hope.
I'm Ludovic Michaud, also known as Ludo. I've been in the industry for over 30 years now. I started my life at Softimage. Actually, most of you probably remembers that. And I moved 25 years ago to Texas. And I joined a production company called Genimation. Worked on a couple of features, such as the Spy Kid movies, a series, and a bunch of movies like Wolverine, The Origin, and Green Lantern, things you don't want to talk about because of the quality of the movie, the story of the movie, at least, because the effects were impeccable, right? And then after that, I moved to Real Effects. I worked at Real Effects for a couple of years and make it the 2-minute rule there. The last 13 years, I've been at Kogan. This is an architectural firm. I work at the Media Lab. I'm the VFX director of the Media Lab. And what we do here is we're the storytelling arm of the firm. and it's why I talk too much. And what we do is we visualize everything for the firm, right? We do everything from renderings to animation to integration to if there's a pixel to move somewhere, we're usually involved. So, and then we do a lot of we do broadcasting, we do interviews, we do B-roll, we have drone we have drone pilots. I mean, we have a full team. My team is expanded around New York, LA, Dallas, Orlando, and Singapore now, which has been very successful at this point, which is very pleasing that it works. The hours are tough, but other than that, so that's what I have, because I'm trying to keep it under 2 minutes, and I want to make sure I don't break the rules.
I don't want to stress you. It's just that there are really many topics, and I really want to hear your opinion on every topic, like for each one of you, because this is going to be the most useful thing for all the people who have gathered here to watch us live and watch the recordings afterwards. So thank you very much all for introducing yourselves and for being here. It's such a pleasure to hang out with you so soon after the Chaos Connect days. So let's talk business now. And to start off, let's say, generally speaking, if we really try to generalize very roughly, I would say that there are two major career paths in front of a 3D artist. Either become an employee somewhere in a visualization studio as part of a visualization team, or become self-employed as a freelancer, studio founder, something like this. So let's start off with the first option, the 3D artist as an employee. And I would love to know from you, what advice would you give to those applying for 3D artist positions so that they have some better chances of succeeding at doing so? To clarify, like, what skills do you look for when somebody applies? How should they present themselves in terms of, portfolio, the way they reach out? And also, what else do you look for in an artist besides their skills, like their personality, their political views, whatever, just whatever it is? Who wants to start? Mengyi, you're the first one up there. Please start.
Cool. Yeah, so we do employ people in-house in addition to outsourcing. So normally we don't look at schools, we don't look at your history necessarily, but we look first and foremost, the portfolio. Do you have like a wow image? Is your work making a great impact? Do you have, most importantly, that eye, right? Like, it doesn't necessarily mean you need to know like all the software or the most advanced software, but if you have sort of the potential and you're showing that you're curious and that you're drawing from a lot of artistic influences and creative influences, like that's really the most important thing for us. And then a lot of it is actually soft skills. So I think that's honestly more important than the actual quality of the work. Like, one is the willingness to learn and to explore, not only when your director tells you, hey, like go and look at this, but you willingly go and say like, I want to look at this. I want to try out this new software. Hey, this just like came on the market. I know it's completely unrelated, but give me like 2 hours a day to like try something out that's new. That's always really exciting. And of course, like all the sort of communication skills, like willing to look for help when that's needed and to be able to communicate with others, like not only your peers, but also outside of the office, I think is really important. I know we all just came from Chaos Connect, and it was amazing because I felt like in that room, we just had a group of like 30 people who all had like amazing communication skills. And, we weren't necessarily held back from sharing knowledge. And so I think that's like really important, is also just realizing that you're part of, a larger group of people in the industry. You're not alone. If you don't have that knowledge, like ask for that help. And if you do have the knowledge, be willing to share it. And so I think like those are really important skills for us. A third one, I would say, as someone who is working in an architecture office, very often we have to not only be the architect, we have to be the interior designer, we have to be the landscape designer, we have to be the lighting designer. Thank God we don't have to be the mechanical engineer yet. But
Yet.
you have to be willing to wear a lot of hats. And I think the same will apply also if you're a studio, when your client can't necessarily do everything, especially in early concept phases, is like just make something up, but it has to be beautiful, right? And so I think having sort of that also goes back to point number one, where it's like, if you have those diverse interests and you're willing to learn, you can start to build this like set of skills. And so like, even if you don't come from an art biz background, it's not necessarily, a mark against you, right? You're bringing other skills to that table, and we can always teach you how to render. That's not the important part. We can teach you the tools, but those soft skills are really, really important, I think, in my opinion.
So potential more important than skill, the way I hear it. Thank you very much. Ludo, what would you say?
Oh, I'm already okay. I'm already somebody moving me. Okay, I think confidence is very important for me. I understand being stressed and nervous when you get to an interview, but I like confidence. I like people that believe in what they already know, whether they know a lot or not. That's beside the point. I also like. I'm not just like Mengyi. I'm not looking for a complex reel. I'm looking for a good 10-second. I'm looking for that one image. I'm like, okay, this is the person I'm looking for. I've seen plenty of reels along the years, and the people I pick, and I think the people that are the most successful from the people I picked like 20 years ago that are VFX directors now and stuff like that, is the people that, funny enough, is the people when they showed up at my desk, they only had 10 seconds. They didn't have a full reel, or they had. I have this kid that is now a big concept artist in Hollywood. When I met him, he wanted to be an animator, and he had I didn't think he had a lot of skills for animation. But that said, I saw this one little image on this desk, and I'm like, what is that? It's, I just do that in my time off. And for me, I mean, that was a revelation right there. I was like, this is what you need to do. And I give him some exercise and stuff. And next thing you know, he was working on major music videos, and now he's working on he's got like 60 blockbuster on this list now. So it's really it's the way you present yourself. It's the way that you don't oversell. There's no reason overselling. We're gonna catch it too fast. Lying to us is, we've seen plenty. We know what that looks like. So there's no point of saying, oh, I can do that. However, if you are saying you're confident about something that you've done, so for instance, I used to say, I still do, but I used to code. And one of my first interview when I got there, I said I can code, and they made me code on paper, which was very interesting. But they made me code on paper. But I did say that, saying, well, I know the basic and I can do some shells and stuff like that. But that was enough for them. Like, whoa, okay, you can write code, and they tried it and it worked. They tried it on the computer and it worked. Just be confident. Again, it was all about the confidence, right? It's all about the confidence level. It was scary when they said write code on paper. I was like, what? Who writes code on paper? People write on the computer, not on paper. But yeah, and the kids that I got a bunch of kids lately for Singapore, and really what got me attracted to them was their confidence, and it was their knowledge, and that little nugget that you're like, what, artists, like they show you all their reel, you're like, oh, that's great, but then suddenly you're like, can I see something else? And then they go to their website, all scared of showing their website, and you're like, oh my God, this is a great artist. You can see it, just in drawings and stuff. So I think it's important to not be like Mengyi said, not be just one person, be more generalist and bring soft skills and bring all that stuff. I think it's a big plus for us.
Thank you very much. This sounds really, really great. So I see that potential is incredibly important, no matter if you're perfect, or maybe you're not perfect yet, but if you have the potential, if you have the confidence, maybe not only in your skills, but also in yourself, that you're willing to learn, as Mengyi said, that you're willing to do it, that this is what stays with people who view your applications. Hannes, what's your experience? Sorry, you're muted. Yeah,
yeah, in my experience, I very much agree with what Mengyi, for example, said about, I'd rather hire on potential than you showing me a perfect sort of portfolio, and then I'm almost getting suspicious, did you do all that yourself type of thing? And also tying into what Ludo said, having that one moment. I'd rather have an imperfect image that conveys an idea and a intent. And at best, I have a person in front of me that I can ask questions about that, and they can reply in a way that I am having a fun conversation with them about something they're passionate about. And then immediately that gives me an idea, this is the type of person that would be fun to work with, because that's going to be part of the reality in the future moving on. So I feel also, you get to make another point, the personality thing, and that often has to do with, what do you do besides work? Are you into cooking? Are you into music? What's your other things? And if you're an interesting person and you have other things besides work, then you're probably not going to be too stressed about sometimes having a problem with an image at work because you have other things in your life. That's important for balance. And on the other hand, that'll give you inputs and inspiration from other places. That is crucial, I think, in performing well and staying creative, basically, and not just always being the one-trick pony doing what you did 5 years ago, warming up whatever you've been doing successfully for a while. I think we want to be creatives. And for that, it needs more than just putting out the same thing every week.
Thank you very much. I think
No worries.
creativity and being open to develop, work on yourself. This is what I hear from you, and this will be great for the next question that will come to in a minute. Now that I was thrown out of Riverside, I screwed up our order here. But Bettina, how do things look like on your side when it comes to people who apply, let's say, for Xoyo? What do you look for there, and what advice would you give to artists?
Well, can basically continue the path that Mengyi, Hannes, and Ludo already have been laying out. I am interested in a person. I am not that much interested in someone who is already perfect as an artist. I mean, I'm interested in a development in a person. I'm interested in building up a continuous relationship with somebody joining my studio. So I want to get to know this person. Of course, curiosity, a certain design knowledge. Obviously, this is a basis we have to agree on. But apart from that, the person has to fit into our team. Every job is a team effort. We're swapping jobs. Like if someone is not willing to work on the bottom end of an image, we're screwed. It just doesn't work like that. So we need to be good. Think that it's like looking on a portfolio. I can advise you to not just put your polished images in. Show me that you're able to run a process. I know everybody can drag and drop from 3D Sky. That doesn't show me that you can actually build a model if it's necessary. Just if you work process-based in a portfolio, that's valuable to us. And think from the perspective of a studio. Try to hinge onto a studio. If you know somebody there, reach out, ask them questions, try to find out how the studio you'd like to join, how they are working, what you can maybe add to the studio, what can you propose to them. I think that's something that we experience sometimes, and that was really cool. Someone coming up and say, hey, I can code. I think you're missing that. It's good. Call me. Don't send an email. If you really want to work somewhere, reach out. Don't send an email. It's ending. Delete it. The business is tough these days. If you really want to work there, reach out. So I think that's
great points, especially, this one with the personal contact, the personal application, because an email can easily land in the spam folder and that's it. So try to reach out personally. And thinking from the perspective of the potential employer of course, makes a ton of sense. Nigel, what's your experience? Or what's your advice?
Got a few points to cover, so I'll be quick. I agree with everybody who's spoken. First point I want to make is a high percentage of jobs that have come through my studio or came to my studio where it came through referrals from the team who already worked with me. So we would say, look, we need an artist. Does anyone know anyone? That was almost 90% of people who joined our studio. So get to know folks who work at a studio you want to try and get a job at. Here in London, that happens quite a lot. And also attend meetups if you can, because attend the network, because that's where people go to make friends. And that's, you'll find at 3D London or 3D New York or Berlin, people go there to meet each other, and then that's how they get jobs. Second point is ask questions. Do your research. If I was getting a job with Mengyi at Shop Architects, I would research everything about the work, and I would come in and I would ask questions. I would ask Mengyi, look, that project you did last year, that was fantastic. Tell me more about this. You're going to show that you're really, really interested, and you know the business. You know why you want to work there. Another point, clean up your social media. Do you not think we as companies, we judge you? I had a whole team at my studio, or a person at my studio who would do a report, and we would dig into every single one of your social accounts, and we would find that you're a party person, or out every night, you're till 4 a.m. It's like, you're not going to fit. You're not going to turn up at 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock in the morning because that's not your lifestyle. So, You got to be honest. And when I've talked to students about this, they're like, you can't judge us like that. It's like, you're putting yourself out there. Be a professional and have your personal account, but have your professional account with your professional work that a business can look at and go, that person belongs with us. You're part of the tribe, the team. Next one, stand out. Why are you different? You know, again, back in my studio, I had 100 to 200 CVs coming through a week. And one spelling mistake, you're out. You had to be ruthless of how you actually get through. So it would be that, like the others have said, it's if you're personal, if you're different, then and you're top of the pile. I'm really curious about this person that's standing out. Would look at your social, and if all you're doing is posting the same images as everyone else, there's no story there. You're just following the herd. Last one, which Ludo sort of touched on, but I thought I've just written it on my list here, is don't plagiarize other people's work. Now, I bring that up because I had a person come for an interview with me who had copied one of our images. They didn't ask permission for it, so we brought them in for an interview. And this person was like, tell me more about this image. And this guy took ownership of our work and going, yeah, I did this. This is all great. Before we brought that up on screen, said, you stole our work. And the person didn't know what to do. It'd been found out. And unfortunately, that person got blacklisted from the industry. Do you not think that all of us talk? We all know each other. Everybody in the industry knows each other. If you're a great artist, you're going to go far. If you're an honest artist, you're going to go even further. So get involved in the community. And we're not that scary. I don't think any of us are scary, but we love what we do, which is why we do it. And so if you come across as that person who's willing and keen, then you'll go far. That's it.
Thank you so much. These were wonderful insights from all of you. It's like I have a huge list. I'm taking notes, and I have a huge list of things, and I think I would gonna say that, let's say, half of those I haven't thought about myself. It's fantastic. Thank you so much for this. Yes or no questions. So judging by everything you said, it's gonna be, if somebody comes with a portfolio, you would prefer to have 5 good storytelling, nearly perfect images rather than 50 of various quality, right?
Or one.
One. Okay, that's enough. And the other thing, technical skills or storytelling? Technical skills?
Depends on what the job is.
Yeah. Obviously. But let's say a general 3D artist, somebody who has to do interiors, exteriors, and stuff like this. I mean, technical skills obviously matter. But
I think I would say problem solver before technical skills.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
I need that person to know how to fix a problem or find the resources to fix a problem before I would say I need them to be technical. Of course, I need somebody who can tell stories, but that's something that I can, if they have a basic, I can train that. I personally think I can train that.
No, you're right.
The problem solving is not something, I mean, I've been doing that for 30 years. It's hard to teach somebody how to problem solve. They have to have the mindset for that. Yeah. So that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, I think that ties, like, I agree with Ludo. I think especially, like, going back to my point where, you have to very often wear many, many hats, some that you've no training for. I think so when it comes to a portfolio, it's not necessarily just the technical skills. It would be great to see technical skills. Like, it'll make my life a lot easier if you have the technical skills. But if you also have like a wide variety of work, and it could be varying qualities, it just shows that you've been curious and you've explored a lot of different lanes, So like, my background and professional background was I worked in exhibition design, I worked in lighting design, I worked in arena design. Like, it's all these like very different areas. Like, I've worked in fabrication, but it builds a well-rounded person. And I think the more you're sort of equipped with these skills and the more you can show that in the portfolio, and you could show things that are not necessarily even visualization, it could just be, I had a side hobby and I built something, or like I worked with a group, or, I worked in a nonprofit in an interesting country, and I have now that experience and that background, because especially like with projects these days, like, we're pretty international, and it's amazing when we work on a new project in a place where nobody has experience in, and then that one guy, like a new designer, will just come in and be like, that's my hometown, And you get like a completely different perspective and you get the sort of like cultural input and the sort of nuance that you might not have if you just didn't have someone like in that area. And I think, just besides location and personal history, I think it also applies to the fields. And so if you have that well-rounded portfolio, there's there's a higher chance, that someone will find something there that's interesting to them, and that can speak to them and get you to that next stage. Like Nigel had mentioned, like that will help you stand out. Because if you have, the typical portfolio of beautiful interiors and it's all really beautiful high-end luxury interiors, that's only going to narrow my field to knowing, okay, you can do that really well, but like what else can you bring to the table?
So it sounds like being a generalist gives you better chances than focusing on one thing only when it comes to applying for jobs.
It's like you have 100
Definitely.
lottery tickets instead of just 2,
Can I just follow on from Mengyi there? Don't think that your artwork and you should focus solely on the quality of your artwork, because there's lots of positions available in studios. You might not be the best artist in the world, but you might be an incredible producer, or you'll fit somewhere else into the business. So it's know your strengths and discuss it. So when you're showing your portfolio, you could say, look, you'd laugh at, look, I know that's not great and I could have improved here and here, but then you'll demonstrate that you actually know how to manage the project. You see the faults in it, that may not be your own. That might have been the client or whatever, but most studios will want to actually educate and teach you how that studio works. So don't try and think that, I'm the superstar, because you won't fit in. You need to learn the ways that they work.
Makes a lot of sense, makes a ton of sense. So being honest pays off, I would say.
Yeah.
And what would you recommend generally, to wait for an announcement for an open spot or to do cold applications?
Never. What do you think?
Never.
LinkedIn's not there just to sit there and go, oh, look at this new way. Reach out to people. Talk to people and say, and that's what I mentioned before. Reach out and say, how I'm training, I'm educating or whatever. I'd love, in 3 years' time, what are the things I need to do to go and work at Shop Architects?
So
That starts as a first plus. Basically, that shows you take initiative rather than
100%.
wait for an announcement. There's offerings here. That's you showing, I'm interested in this company. I want to work there. And honestly, I have had 2 artists work under me at Bloom who basically knocked on the door one day and was like, I can't do this right now. Come back tomorrow. But I love the sort of like pertinence of that. There's a face there. There's a person there. You can smell them, hear them. That's a different experience than having a video call with some person, someplace. And immediately it shows tenacity and motivation. And that's a big plus for starters right away.
great. Bettina, so we talked about this part, and then let's say one artist gets hired and starts doing interiors. What's the career path in front of? What's the chance for growth for an artist? Let's say so. What happens with the same artist in 40 years? Do they still do the same interiors? Is it up to them how much they develop, or are they expected to at some point leave the ship and create their own studio? What happens next? So what's the
Well, I mean, in the end, we are a rather small studio. So the way of, the career path steps are not as big as in other studios. So basically, there's, you'd call it a junior artist, a senior artist. Sometimes we have a lead if it's a big project. And then there's me. In the end, there is not that much, but in order to, put a foot in on the ground in our studio, I think what I really like, people should show responsibility for their work. They need to engage with the team. They need to be interested in what they do in R&D. They need to show an interest in the client as well. Who are we working for? What are they looking for? What could be a potential future with that client? And that probably hinges on to that I would like to have people that tell me what they like about our studio and what they probably dislike. in order to develop together. I think that's it. But in the end, I mean, it could well be that even after 10 years, they would end up doing an interior as they did on the first day. Yes, possible.
If they enjoy it, there is nothing wrong with that.
Exactly. And this is essentially what we do. And I mean, if you compare it to an architectural job, it's a very small field. I mean, we concentrate on architecture, real estate, and that sort of stuff. So it might be very different with Ludo in his company, but with us, that's probably what I can add.
Thank you so much. This is exactly what I would have asked next. Ludo, what happens with people who start at Corgan, and then what happens in 20 years with them or something?
Well, funny enough, Lab has been up for 28 years now, so we've seen a lot of people. A lot of them actually ended up at Pixar or ILM. They end up all over the place. I mean, it's if you find talents, you develop it and you let it go, right? In my years that I've been here, most people, funny enough, since I've been here for 13 years, most people that have started working here are still here since then. We do tend to keep the people as well, but that goes with the environment in which you grow the people and you bring the people and the culture that you maintain with them. We are pretty proud to say that most people at least have a 7 or 8 years, 10 year. Obviously, we have a younger team that just showed up in Singapore, but if you go the next person, they've been here for like 7 or 8 years. So we tend to try to keep people, the good, talented people and stuff, giving them the right opportunities. And being that we're the Media Lab for the Corgan, and we do a lot of stuff that is outside of the boundaries of what an architectural firm would do without going outsourced, for instance, we tend to do a lot of things that we want to do, meaning we do a lot of integration. We push the integration a little further, and we want to make sure that it looks real. Without exploding a building, I do everything I can to get as close to exploding a building as possible, to do VFX like I used to. So we still do that. That's why I'm still here, because yes, I don't have Godzilla in all my scenes, but I do things that I feel are still, I use Nuke, we use V-Ray, we use all the good tools out there to get to point B. We don't just jump in Photoshop and magic our way through. We use AI, we use VR, we do AR, we do XR, we do all these things that allows people to keep curious, keep up to date, keep up to the latest and greatest, and still be interested, because they don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, right? They don't know what's next. So and we for instance, AI is something we're going to talk a little bit later. I know it's something we embrace here, and we don't embrace it as replacing anybody, but we do everything to find out how they can help us, how they can be that other guy in the room to help us get faster to point B, right? Architecture is all about fast turnaround, and we're in ever-changing design. To work with the designers, you have to let them change until the last minute. And I understand that. I mean, I have no problem with that statement, but it is a hard statement to understand when they change the design 2 days before the delivery of something, right? But it is something they need to do. These designers are creative people, and they set, and then they're like, oh, this is a great idea, but a week later, you're like, we should change this and this and whatever, right? So we have to be able to flex around to be able to do that stuff. So as far as talent goes, like I said, we try to find the best talent possible. Most of the experience that I have, the experienced guys that I have are, all my art directors are at least 20 to 30 years of experience. So we don't just have young guys. We have the seniors that can help the youngers to grow, like the juniors that I have in Singapore. I have this guy that's been in the industry for 35 years. He worked at them for 20 of those. So it's really good to attract that kind of talent and be able to find a place for these guys to be happy and still be able to develop. He's all excited. He's got 5 kids that he's got to mold. This is his project now. His goal, right, is to mold these kids into talented artists. So it's always exciting. It's just,
so there's enough excitement within the job itself, so that people don't need to change career paths or something. If the studio we work for provides you with the latest tools and evolves alongside with how our industry evolves, then the job may be similar, but it's quite different from the moment you've started. This is what I hear.
Absolutely.
Mengyi, Johannes.
I mean, when we started, we were just V-Ray entirely. Now we're doing Enscape, we're doing Envision, we're doing all this real-time stuff on top of doing the AI on top of that. It's just like we're 13 years ago, somebody would have said you're going to do everything in real time. I'm like, well, whatever, like, I would have seen that. But you get the point of like, it changed a lot, right? Today, it's all about on how fast can we get, and all the technology that are there is allowing us to be faster. If we don't open our mind to the next thing, then we get to be the dinosaurs and we get extinct pretty fast.
Yeah, and most likely you won't keep those talented people with you because they'll move to somewhere else which incorporates the new techniques and all of this. Mengyi, Hannes, Nigel, would you agree with those, or
Yeah.
do you have something to add about this?
I mean, we try to do this in-house too. Like, I agree with Ludo. It's like if you can keep people excited with their jobs, then also you have higher retention. Like, we also have people who leave, which makes sense, because it's very often someone's first or second job, like out of school, and they want to go explore the world, and then they come back, And when they come back, it's because we've been doing something that's interesting and maybe providing growth somewhere else hasn't been doing. And I think like also speaking from personal experience, like my job when I started over 13 years ago at this office is not my job today, right? Like I've kept the same title this entire time, but the nature of the work has changed. And a lot of it is self-motivated within the team. So we try very much to be bottom up instead of just leadership telling you this is exactly how you should do it and this is what you should use. If you encourage exploration or you find motivation to explore, there are a lot of opportunities. We get a lot of designers being like, well, we found this really cool tool, can we like implement this somehow? And it's very often where it becomes something that we'll use within the studio itself, but if there's also opportunities to monetize this, that becomes a major incentive. And so like, one day you're a biz artist, the next day you're doing software development and you're doing mobile app development. And then, maybe we've had people who've ended up from the biz team, from like Rhino V-Ray at Epic and at, AWS. And, it's not a static track, right? Like you really shouldn't be doing what you were doing 10 years ago or even 5 years ago, because the sort of nature of the industry itself has not been the same, right? And so I think it's like really important to be able to self-motivate yourself to pivot and pivot very often and realize that, yeah, like Ludo said, like if you don't learn these sort of flexibility skills, you're going to be a dinosaur, right? And so like we try to do this as a company, but we also try to encourage people to grow and to explore and make sure that like maybe there are some guardrails in terms of like how to implement these tools, but also give them the opportunity to explore.
Thank you so much. Hannes, Nigel.
Yeah, just one more little point maybe on that note. I think running a team basically, you have to be prepared to have sort of two types of people. There's going to be your rocks who are around and you can rely on them because they pick up the work and they know how to do it. They have a routine. Hopefully they stay with the times and they reiterate how they go about the process. So it's not the same thing as 10 years ago, but you rely on them. And then you have those all-stars, which you only get a certain amount of time with them because you know they are full of creativity and they won't be there for long. You just sort of try to keep them entertained, let's say, or motivated to stick with you for as long as possible because you know what they bring to you don't know what they bring to the table. In fact, they over exceed at everything. Problem is, at some point, they'll just be like, I'm done here, I need to move on. And that's also perfectly fine. I think that's part of the journey for some. But I think that's sort of like two different types of people. Some people are happy to just be enjoying the craft and making the art, and some people want to move on and have different positions or different technologies, completely different roles, basically. And that's also perfectly fine. That's sort of like my take on that, basically.
Very, very interesting take. Nigel.
I think everyone said everything that should be said, needed to be said. The only thing I could add to that is it depends really on the size of the studio. Because a larger studio is going to have much more opportunity, whereas if it's, a really small studio, and as Hannes just said, you're going to be there for, maybe they give you the first opportunity and you'll be there for a year or two or a week. It doesn't really matter. It's a foot in the door. And I think that's what everyone should strive to actually get a foot in the door. And whether that's working part-time or just helping out, it's just getting a little bit of experience. But try to find something that you really enjoy, because it does come down to passion. It does come down to we you can see whether or not you're enjoying it. And you look at companies, if you look at how long the retention of how long people stay, like Ludo's company must be fantastic if they've all been there for 20 years. And that's the sort of thing you should look for. It's like there's people who actually really enjoy it. Or you look at a studio where it's got such a high turnover and you've got to question why. Why are people only lasting for a week or two or a month and moving on? Or are they using, is that studio a stepping stone studio? And then there's quite a few of those around where people, whether that's, and I think one of the things that's crept in maybe over the last 10 years is all these brand studios that people aspire to. And, you know, I've got to go and work at studio A, B, or C. It's like, and then they get really disappointed when they don't get that job, because but there's thousands, there's hundreds of places to work. So start small. If you've got these aspirations to work at, you know, the best studio in the world, don't think that they're going to answer your LinkedIn post or job application straight away, because everyone in the world wants to work there. So just learn to walk before you can, you know, run. That's the one.
Thank you so much. Guys, to the audience right now, first of all, thank you very much. This was, let's say, the artist as an employee part. We had only 2 questions so far, and we made it in 50 minutes. We have 8 more or something. So yeah, this is going to be epic. Guys, I see you in the comments. You have some questions. We try to answer them if we have time for a Q&A in the end. If not, as I said in the beginning, my great panelists here, they promise to go through the comments when they have the time for that and to answer your questions afterwards in a written form. In the end of the day, what counts is that you get the information you're asking for. So I hope that's okay for you as well. Now let's move over to the, let's say, other alternative, the 3D artist being self-employed once again as a studio founder, as a freelancer, whatever. I think this is most of what refers to most of our audience right now. And of course, first thing I want to ask you here is, and please for a quick answer, because I think, yeah, it's more or less a yes or no question, but would you recommend for 3D artists to first gather experience in a studio before they go solo? Or would you say, no, they can just, you know, start right away? Nigel, you're always the last. Now, please be the first one to answer.
Work anywhere. It's all about, it's just like we've said before, soft skills. Learn. It doesn't have to be industry based. It's just get some of the best people who worked for me were actors. You watch an actor and acting skills going into a business meeting, and it just made me look great. They weren't nervous at all. I was terrified, and they were just like, all right, just give me a few actings. So it's just work for a studio, but like we just said, don't work for a stepping stone studio, or don't think that that's a stepping stone to where you want to be, because again, you'll end up with a bad reputation. So it's back to honesty. You know, it's gone. Especially small studios. You think it's so personal. It's a family that. It's their money that they're putting into it. Maybe the house is on the line, the mortgage, etc. There's so much into, you know, a bigger studio there's more funding, there's more work coming through. It's not as personal. Smaller the studio, it's really personal. So, you know, just try to find somewhere that you fit in.
Also, I think one can get stuck up in a big studio. I remember I had a friend who I studied with, and he was a great architect, way better than I ever was. He had it in his blood somehow. He was just so talented, and he actually got an internship at Herzog and de Meuron, one of the largest architectural studios right now. And what he did there was build models for 16 hours a day. And he absolutely despised the time spent there because he didn't learn much from them. He just learned how to do models, which wasn't what he was there for. And afterwards, he said that he'll never go to another huge architectural office anymore. And the next office he went to for an internship was like a studio with maybe 5 people, and he was so much happier there. So I can absolutely imagine what you say, Nigel. Thank you very much. Bettina, what would you say? get experience, or you're muted. Let me unmute you, please.
Thank you. Well, since I believe in our job as being a team effort, I actually would recommend working in a studio before setting off. However, it so much depends on the personality that you have. And maybe you don't want somebody else telling you what to do. Maybe you absolutely despise that. Then you probably shouldn't experience a studio. And I go with Nigel, just go out, work. I mean, that's a super advice. Make different experiences. Everything you gain on that end, you bring in a studio, or not even in a studio. You bring that in every relation. And we have a working relation with our artists and with our client. And so that's having experienced people there is just very valuable.
Thank you so much. Okay, if you others have nothing major to add to this one, I'll go to the next question, I'm sorry, which is like, okay, we decided we become self-employed freelancers, establish our own studio. And obviously, in order for this to turn into a business, we need clients. What's the best way to find them, to reach out to them? Ludo.
Wow.
Well, yeah, I only have easy
It's a
questions
good
here. I know.
question.
It's a very good question. Just like at the Chaos Days, you guys are catching me with the client one.
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
It's
question for everyone.
cold call. It's word to mouth. It's finding the opportunities and jumping in the opportunities that you see. Don't be shy to come in and get the door closed on you. I mean, you'll get 9 no's before you get 1 yes, right? So just don't give up because somebody said no. That's a life thing. It's not so much about how to get the client, but really at the end of the day for me, it's see who's doing what, see who's interested. I don't know. Maybe if you're small, go with the small. They'll see a connection. If you're big, go with the big. They'll see a connection. So if I look for a client that is Nike and I'm nobody, the chance of me getting Nike is probably not going to be good, right? But if I go to this startup that's trying to go against Nike, I probably have a bigger chance to get with these guys. So it's knowing your crowd, knowing who you're going with, and I don't know that there's a secret to this. It's the confidence. It's the experience. Again, showing up the experience. Nigel said it so well. It's not about that you worked in the industry. It's about the experience you got in life in general. I fortunately and unfortunately started working at 11. So when I showed up at 20, I knew exactly what I was doing with work. And I had a lot of experience to how to talk with people and how to get with people, right? Because I had been through many countless bosses at that point, right? So I had that experience that got there. So that was a plus for me. Experience was there. The way I talked to these guys, these clients and stuff was different than the guy who just started. Is I don't know what to say. I don't know what, which is great. Me, I was like, hey, this is what you're looking for. This is what you're going to get. This is, if you're looking for something else, I'm open-minded. I can expand whatever. But that's how you talk to the person versus saying, well, I think you're looking for me. I'm not sure. I can do this for you, but I've never done it before. Don't negative yourself. Don't self-defecate yourself. It's just don't do that. Just negative is wrong. If anything I'm going to say today is don't say anything negative. I've got this guy who's been doing that for 30 years. I'm mentoring him right now. And every time I talk to him, it's about, well, I did these things, but it's not the best work. I'm like, dude, it's work. And it's pretty good. Funny enough, it's pretty good. He's always saying something negative about what he's, every statement he says is something negative back. That does not attract anybody to you. Nobody wants to talk to you. Just be confident about what you do.
So know your limits, but be confident. Like, don't go immediately for.
Yeah. Well, but like I said, understand the rules too. Like I said, to go for Nike when you're by yourself versus, I'm not saying don't do it, but don't expect miracles. You might be the next Picasso, as far as I know, but at the same time, Nike won't see that right off the bat. They're going to see you're by yourself. If you're an agency of 300 people, they're going to say, well, these guys have done it. They know exactly what they're doing. And no matter what, we're going to have a lot of selection to go with. That's what we're going to go with, right? So understand what you're engaging yourself to, right? And again, 9 no's for 1 yes. That after 30 years, that has not changed. It has not changed.
Thank you very much. Johannes, how Bloom
I
images, narrative. How would you reach out to clients?
Well, luckily, oftentimes we didn't have too much, to be honest. We had a good reputation, but then, of course, you have a first touch point, and that doesn't give you the job first. So I think on top of what everything that Ludo said before, if you want to reach out to a client or you have that first sit down with a potential client, I feel it's good to do your research, just like for an application. Know your client, know what they're doing, what is their offering, what their priorities, their style a little bit, and then learn to maybe speak that language on that first call. And that plus sort of like building trust right away, as in like, I understand your worries and your problems, as in like an architect who will have late night changes basically for the design, or a developer who's like, we've been marketing this for years, but somehow it doesn't hit the right note. Nobody understands the project. So you need to be the guy who reads up on that project quickly enough and basically throws facts their way they maybe haven't heard. And then that shows you've done research, and that builds trust. And that, I feel that malleability and doing your homework a little bit, and despite you still being you and you have a style of work obviously that you bring to the table, we're service providers, so we need to be serviceable also in the way we sell that, I think.
But how do you reach out? Would you to do that? Like, you've made your homework,
To
and
be
would you
honest,
call them?
cold calling, yes, always call over any. Honestly, we all know all these emails that end up dead in our mailbox and we never reply because it's just cold emails, basically. A cold call is at least a voice on the phone, and you can still say, no, I'm not taking that call, or I'm too busy. But coming back to these people that I've hired before, if there's already a human voice on the line, that's a lot more approachable, personable, and much harder to say a hard no to. And then once you have that in. So I've always been keen on sort of like having relationships with people who have relationships, as in like build your network. And you never know, don't be utilitarian about it. Just know people, be friendly with people. You don't know where you'll end up with that. And then you find out, oh, that guy is actually friends with the CFO of that developer. Maybe I can get on a call with them. And because I'm friends with him, I'm already a sort of sympathetic person in that room. And that gives me space to operate in and build upon, basically, rather than being just yet another visualization studio out the door trying to get their money and their work. I think personal connection is huge with everything, and especially with creative work. People need to trust you, and there might be intense moments coming up at some point in the process. And the more likable the other person is, the easier that process will be negotiated, I think.
Yeah, I think the word of mouth is, of course, the best way to promote yourself, or others to promote you, actually, because there is already, you hear the opinion of someone who trusts, and don't just read some generic text about how this is the best studio out there and stuff. So obviously this works, but it's kind of difficult in the beginning, because when you establish a new studio, there is no word of mouth. Maybe this is why it's good to have some experience from a studio where you have worked, so that some clients maybe already know you, so that when you establish your own, you can say, oh, you know what, here I am, it's the same person.
Obviously, yeah. With Bloom Images, the conversation starter was always, hey, we had the App Philharmonie. Everyone knows that building. It's an HDM project, so it's like world renowned. That's already the big old door opener. And with Narrative, we had Olympia London. So you want to have something you can talk about with that the client also knows. So they're already in the picture at least a little bit. You already have common ground. You're not starting from scratch there, basically.
Yeah, thank you.
That's important. Sometimes it's just sort of like maybe something third. Maybe it's neither your nor the client's project, but something where you know they've been involved at a point and maybe they're frustrated about it. You vent your frustration about what the design became or something. And already you have common ground, even though you haven't even shared your own work, basically.
Great points. Mengyi, what would you say?
This is very interesting, because usually I'm the client in this case.
So
Like, Johannes and I have worked together, also when he was at Bloom. And I'm just thinking, like, also, like, in terms of getting clients, it's really honestly not much different than getting a job at a studio, because you need to have really kind of the same set of skills. I agree with Hannes. I think it's really important to present yourself as a person first and foremost. We get bombarded with LinkedIn connections all the time from Viz Studios, from everywhere. And all I get from that really is just a profile picture and a name of a person and a name of a studio. I don't know anything about them, right? I can't connect any sort of like personal traits to that person. I don't know how they would work. And often, especially, like it's also what Nigel was saying, like you get like 100, you get 200 of these sort of applications, for them to get your work. And it's often very overwhelming. And so when we meet our our studios and we meet our contractors, it definitely builds a sort of different relationship with them because you understand them as a person. You can already see how they would present to maybe leadership of our firm or even to our clients, like giant developers. You can see that they're confident, and that confidence plays a huge role. That you can say, okay, you know, and you give like sort of like these sort of qualifiers where you're just like, okay, well, I can't do this today, but I can definitely get you like A, B, and C by tomorrow morning. I can get you like 90%, and the rest will just come. And like we like to see that sort of flexibility. And a lot of that comes just from like talking to people and meeting these people. And you understand that, okay, like all the work, like there's so much like high quality work out there these days that it's so hard to start to distinguish these offices, right? So it's really important to meet the person and say, okay, you can stand your ground. And this could be someone who just has like 2 projects in their portfolio and they're completely new. And again, it's that potential, right? It's like they've got good work, they've got excellent speaking and communication skills, and we're just going to give them a chance. And in addition to that, like I think it actually doesn't hurt if in addition to client work, you also pursue personal projects, because again, it's speaking to that idea of like showing your work, right? And, very often what we do when we start vetting artists or studios for our projects, let's say, we have a project of this typology. And so I go out there, I look for studios who have that sort of work already in their portfolios. So the more range you can show, the better, because like, let's say, yeah, like I'm working on like this massive like luxury development in like this specific location. And if you have something that could relate to that, then that's something we can already start to communicate about, right? And so I think it helps to really show, like, to do these sort of projects, especially early on. I mean, you're forming your studio, you're new at this, you have the time, right? So build your portfolio, build your network, go to the meetups, because again, like to reiterate Hannes's point, it's like you never know who you'll meet, right? And there's so much crossover in our industries right now, like not only just in art biz and in architecture in general, but you have like VFX, you have film, maybe like someone needs like renderings of a building, for like a short film or for like game development. You never know. So I think it's always like a good idea to like expand as much as possible, to be curious, to be confident, and to be able to communicate. And yeah, like a cold call never hurts, but like make sure that you are there in person and you have a face that they can like relate and tie back to, and not just a name on LinkedIn.
Thank you very much. I absolutely agree with this one, especially the personal part. When you're prepared, when you have something to offer which is like custom tailored to a potential client, because there are people who try to become a part of Outdoor Visual Studio, or maybe send their application and stuff. And I often see this dear sir and madam, and it's just me in Outdoor Visual Studio. Like it takes literally a minute to go to my page and see that the Outdoor Visual Studio, it's me. And to address me personally. But the moment I see dear sir and madam and all of this, I'm like, no, you're sending this to like 1 million people. You're not interested in me. You're just interested in getting a job somewhere. So yeah, you can just screw off, honestly. So yeah, I think being personal is very important. Nigel, so cold calls were the hit. Yeah.
I got a couple of things to add. Well, first of all, the other thing we haven't talked about is remember that your existing clients are a gold mine. Most of our work was repeat business, and that's for 20 years. It's so difficult for a new studio to break into a client who loves working with the people they're working with. They have to completely catastrophically screw up before the client is going to go, you know what, I'm going to look for someone else, because it takes their time and effort, and they don't want to do that. We've already talked about trust. They trust these are their render guys or their viz guys. So that's one thing. The other thing that we haven't spoken about, that I hopefully have got a couple of minutes to talk about this, and that is guerrilla marketing. Now, what I mean by guerrilla marketing is not using social media not so. I see lots of people going to trade shows or architectural trade shows where the architects or the property developers, they're all trying to sell their wares. The last thing they want is a pesky little visualizer or visualization company coming up to them. They've spent a fortune to be at this trade show. So if I go back to the first time when I was in the .com days, and we'd started an online 3D library. It was a furniture library. At the same time, actually, we were just before Turbo Squid. Now, we didn't have a lot of money for marketing, but one of the clever things that we did is at a trade show here in London, we bought the smallest stand in this big, massive, it was a broadcast trade show. So we had a small stand there, but we decided that how do we get media coverage? How do we get noticed and known? And people are going to talk about us at this trade show and also in the wider press. So what we did is we organized a picket line out the front of the trade show. So when people were coming in, we'd hired a whole bunch of students with big placards who were walking around protesting against our company, saying, oh, we were an online furniture company. These people were doing terrible things to furniture. And every single person, and there were thousands of people entering this trade show. Remember, there were people like Pixar there. There were companies that had spent a fortune. We got coverage in all the trade press. We got coverage. Our tiny little trade stand literally beside the toilet was rammed with, who the hell are these people? Why are these people protesting against you? We even got John Lasseter. So Pixar turned it. John Lasseter and the Pixar guys came along to see what this was all about. And that kicked off that business. Then further down the line, when I diversified my Glowfrog studio away from ArtViz into broadcast, and we did the same thing. We went guerrilla. And I thought, how do we get noticed? How do we get to learn? We need lots of directors and clientele. So we printed, this is back in celluloid days, we printed our show reel on a short run of film, Rush, basically. And we printed like 20 of these. It cost a fortune. And then we had a run round Soho because we knew where the director was cutting. They were in the edit suite, and they rushed in with this shot, and on it was a little note saying, hey, this is the most important shot that you've got missing. This is going to change your life. And these directors were like, what the hell's it? And they would actually look through, and then they'd go, we'd get the call going, are you guys mad? And that's what helped us diversify the business. And we picked up, 15 directors. So think out of the box, that get in people's face somehow, but do it differently. So that because people love to be able to talk about something. And we've done a whole bunch of that, all sorts of different ones, some successful, some not. But guerrilla marketing, that's my thing.
Standing out. So standing out of the ocean of options.
Well, as Oscar Wilde once said, there's only one thing worse than being talked about. It's not being talked about.
Yeah. So wonderful advice. Bettina, do you have something to add? Let me unmute.
Hi, Nigel. Thanks for sharing this. It's hilarious. Super cool.
Very cool.
I think there's a difference that got slightly mixed up in this. There's finding clients and convincing clients or keeping clients. This is probably I think you could even put that in two different columns. Finding clients is, I'm an architect. I haven't learned this. I'm not a marketing person. This is not what we are best at. And agreed to all that has been said, personality, building trust, being out, like meeting people, getting into conversations as often as you can, definitely good. I would like to add, develop a good portfolio. Sounds kind of obvious, but I think it's not been said in this round. Or Mengyi you said, well, show a variety, that makes you also interesting. Similar to portfolio when you want to apply at a studio. I think this is really the same story that just makes you interesting. And I also think it is important what Ludo said. Look who you can serve. Like, who is your right client? Who is this company or person that you can help out? You can actually provide a service that you can do better probably than others. And you need to show why you can do this better. And in order to do so, I think you need to really do your research about this client. You need to know whom to talk to in this company, not just calling randomly. And it's, I think, very good to be, it sounds a bit naive, but be generally informed, know about the city politics, know their latest project, who is the architect in this, who is the architect working for else, who has done the latest renders, who is paying for this job, which bank was, I don't know. I mean, not that I know all of this about every job, but the more I know, the deeper I can get into conversation and end up being trusted because, oh, this is a knowledgeable person who doesn't think about pixel only. And in the end, then I can show that I have a greater understanding about the world of building or the world of filmmaking or the world of city development, and that we want to be part of that, and that we can help our clients to put their stone in the field.
So you understand your clients' needs and you're the right service provider for them. This is what you need to.
Well, I think that's what I wanted to say. Yes.
Yeah, I always try to summarize because.
Yeah, no, it's just, sorry.
No, this was great. I really loved your examples about, knowing about the city or about their current projects or whatever they work on, so that it feels genuine, it feels specific, custom tailored, and not just a generic call like, hey, do you need visualization? No, okay, bye.
If I know that client I'm interested in has been working with architect XYZ, which I happen to know, then I can ask, do you know Martin? Yeah, great. I don't know. It's just small, tiny mosaic pieces that build a picture that is hopefully founded on a trustful relationship.
Very nicely put.
Yeah, can I just piggyback on that? I think like it's really important what Bettina is saying about doing the research. And one thing, it's not just only knowing where, sort of finding the right client, but also sometimes it's worthwhile to see what gap do they have in their work that you can fill. Like what service that you can specifically provide or find a way to provide that maybe nobody else is doing yet. So like when we first started doing real time, we were doing all of it in-house because we couldn't necessarily find a studio that was who had like Unreal training in ArcViz. And so like our sort of solution was like, okay, well, let's just go back to the schools and let's start teaching like people like real-time rendering skills, because there wasn't necessarily a service provider for that yet. So like if you can find that service, and again, it just requires doing research on the clients and also research on the current like market, not just in biz, but also in the development worlds and the architecture worlds and also in tech. See what you can do and get there before everybody else can get there.
Great. Thank you very much for those insights. Now, a quick question about the next step. So now that we found some clients and we want to proceed to the next step and establish a business relation with them, I think many are unsure if it's enough to have a, let's say, clearly defined quote. And by this, I mean a quote which contains all the working conditions, the pricing, the work duration, the delivery date, and it is signed by a client, or if we always need a contract between the 3D artist and the client. What would you say? Like with 1-2 sentences, because this is more of a technical topic, but still a relevant one.
Yeah, I think it's like, for instance, with our, like, it's again, going back to trust, like we work with some studios consistently, like over the years, and they're always sort of our like front line. Like if we need something, we call like these 1 to 3 studios. We always work with them. And in those cases, we have sort of a different relationship with them. We have a contract, asterisk mark, it's like we have this contract. We know that these are the general terms that we're going to set here. There's always going to be a lot of variables that are not necessarily under our control. It can be our client, the developer, It could be some kind of a state or federal committee or commission that is now moving their meeting, further down the line. It could be something that's happening in world's politics that has now shifted everything. So that's always there as sort of like, they're like, yes, we will try our best to conform to this, but there might need to be some flexibility. And so I think like that's something that will definitely help, especially if you're establishing a contract with the new studio, or you're new at establishing your own studio and trying to like get work. Is that like set out these like general requirements in that contract, sign that contract, have respect for yourself and for everybody that works for you, but at the same time realize that sometimes your client is also facing challenges that might not necessarily reach that point. But of course, you have to always like fight for yourself a little bit, and you say, well, this is what we agreed on, this is what I can deliver to you based on this agreement, and then let's talk again, maybe in a week or in a month or even in a year, and we can do something else, right? And so like have that baseline ready, but always be ready for challenges to come up. And I think that's also the best way to retain these clients and to build that trust, is that if they can see that you have that flexibility, and again, have respect for yourself, don't work those weekends, don't kill yourself, but show that like you can do these things efficiently and be able to be a little bit like flexible, that's going to make a good impression on your client, and for them to be like, right, those guys, when we had that problem, they were willing to go a little bit extra for us or to accommodate us. And because they've done that, I like them better than the studio that said, no, this was the date we said we would deliver it by. This is what you asked for. This is all we can do for you. I think it's a very sort of fine line, but I think it does really help make a better impression if like you have that contract. And of course, like for us in legal reasons, like we need that contract as well.
Yeah, I understand. Ludo, what would you say?
Well, I think the contract is the boundaries, right? It sets the rules and clearly defines what's happening next. So from there, be mindful. If you gonna go the extra mile, maybe mention it too, because some clients don't even see that. They think it's owed to them that you have to do those extra miles. You don't have to be arrogant about it, but just say, hey, you know what? Hey, I know this is totally outside of the contract. I'm totally cool with jumping on this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to work this week, whatever, extra hours, whatever it needs to be done. But, next time we do this, we might have to retalk a little bit. Just set them up for success of the next time they decide to do this again. You can react better, right? It's about not saying no. It's about avoiding the word no. I made that's one of my thing here. I can't say no. So it's a good and a bad thing really at the end of the day. But I think it's a good thing because it shows flexibility. It shows I'm there to problem solve. There's so many situations where things change at the last minute. Where I used to work on this commercial. I don't know why I'm thinking about this, but I was working on a commercial for McDonald's and Coke, and a vendor told us, "Oh, you can have all that footage for free. Don't worry about it." But they didn't know who we were doing the commercial with. And the agency went with this because we only had a small budget, whatever, to do something quick for it was a commercial that was being run for like 2 weeks, and that was it. It was over after that. And so spending money on it didn't make sense. So eventually, somehow the vendor realized that we were working for McDonald's and Coke and decided to send us a bill of $250,000 for it. And we're like, whoa, so much for free footage. So, obviously the client freaked out at the time, but it's sit down and show your problem solving skill at that point. And I figured out a way to reuse the whole footage without using the footage, if that makes sense. It's a very cool commercial. If you look at my video, you'll see it's a Coke and McDonald thing about March Madness and stuff. But all these characters are all rotoed and stuff like that. I ended up asking the client for $25,000 extra for this to fit the bill, fit the schedule. We had a deadline that we can go over. But flexibility and agility and problem solving is probably the biggest thing that I want to bring to this thing, because I think Mengyi's got very, very solid points, and it's hard to beat this right now. Really, it's and when it comes to architecture, it's about flexibility. Flexibility is probably the biggest thing that makes us, and I have to say proudly that Kogan has a 95% rate of return clients. It's because of that flexibility. It's about, and when I got here it was 91, and now we're at 95, 13 years later. So we're growing every year. We're getting the numbers getting bigger and bigger every year. But it's because of all that flexibility. I don't get to talk to the actual client very often because I'm in visualization, so the architect do that. But when I do get to talk with the client, it's always a fun thing to just, suddenly they hear something different than just architecture talk. But you have to make sure that you do a good impression and that you show that and they're like, well, can you figure out how to do it in 24 hours? I'm like, well, I'm going to set the expectation. It's going to look like this. And then suddenly you show up after 24 hours, like, well, this is not what you said. This is like 10 times better, right? Well, I gotta set the expectation somewhere so that you can say that after that, So, but that remains in their head, like, well, these guys over deliver. They will do everything they can. They won't over promise. They will over deliver, right? That's one of the things. It's under promise to over deliver. Over promising is always the thing why they don't come back. I think that's the biggest thing, that people don't come back to you, or you just over promise something. Oh yeah, I can do all this, and you show up with nothing. It's like, well, or less than what you promise, and it makes a big impact on the end result.
And a negative one, and a lasting one, I assume, and they don't come back.
Yeah.
Please share this video, this commercial that you were talking about on the campus.
I'm gonna look for this. I brought it up.
I'd be very curious to see, because the backstory is amazing. Hannes, sometimes people here on the campus, and not only 3D artists in general, have a hard time defining their prices. What would you recommend in this regard? Like there is a local market, because there are people from all over the world. Is it per square meter, or is it per task, or what would you recommend? It's a tricky question.
I get it. The question gets asked by every client, basically. What's the price of an image? And I feel images have become almost commoditized to an extent these days. Very many people can offer an image, so you will have a big range of offerings. Today, a former client of mine who I casually spoke to basically told me that they're getting images at the 10th of the price that I was offering them a couple of years ago, basically. That's who they work with. So I'm not getting back into image negotiations with them. But I think it can, that's a conversation not to be had, basically, at that point. When somebody reaches out to us and wants work out of, I think it's about pricing the client rather than the work, as in, like, what is that client? What do they do with that image? Is that an architect trying to get a job in for a competition? Is a very different case than somebody who's a developer and making millions of euros or pounds or dollars of whichever apartment or commercial space you're selling there. So we're part of the marketing chain. So that's two very different uses of our work and utilizations. And we also know they have a different bottom line on the client side. I think don't tell people a general image price, because the work is vastly different from doing a carport renovation next to the next Olympia or Elbphilharmonie. That's very different tasks to tackle. A, and B, the clients are very different. You will have different aches in the process, and you will have different processes and more review rounds and so on. Thus, I don't think it's worth to have a price. I always get allergic when studios put up a price list on their website. That kind of shows me, oh my God, that's our industry eating itself, basically. And we'll all be underpricing each other with our price list on the websites, and that's the end of it all, basically. And then people will just, and then there's an AI that's even cheaper. Yeah, great. Thank you. That's all I have to say to that.
So project dependent and client dependent pricing.
Yeah, I would even say more client dependent than project dependent in a way. If you've done your research on the client and you know where they're coming from and what their use case is for what they're asking out of you, that's more important than the product itself almost.
Yeah. And no payment in exposure and stuff like this, please. Yeah. Bettina, I saw your thumbs up during Hannes' speech. What do you have to add to this?
How to come up with a price. That's where we are right now. Again, I think understanding and knowledge is the key to that. What Hannes said, don't put up a price list for an image. That is something that is contradictory to the basis of our work, because I understand every job we do, almost every job, as it's a very individual effort. And that individuality basically starts with understanding our client and based on, or the purpose of the image and the client. And based on that understanding, I can develop a brief lately. I mean, rarely clients come with a clear brief. And based on that, I can turn around a price. And I'm always trying to be in conversation about this. So I'm trying to hinge onto that if there is, I mean, I understood your content, your timing, and your pricing frame in that sort of niveau. If I misunderstood, please reach out and let's talk. There's a million ways getting us to Rome. And I'm sure that we can get together. I'm sure that we can help you. I do not calculate hours I need to get this job done. I try to find out what it is worth for my client. And sometimes we even sit down and calculate, okay, if this apartment is being sold at the price of X, and if we have a great marketing out and it's been sold 6 months earlier, what's the approximate value of this to our client? And then it might be ridiculous if I have a price list.
It's not flexible. So it's an individual pricing. But of course, you remain flexible. You still want to offer your service and find a common ground with your client. But the estimation is based on their current project and your current plan.
Exactly. And I mean, very simply, if I know that a project is in, German Leistungsphase 2, it's at the very beginning of a design process. I know that the amount of revisions to get somewhere will be much greater than if the project is at Leistungsphase 5 tender drawings. So this is a complete different story. But if I know all this in the beginning, I can kind of understand where we are and what the effort will be.
Wow, fantastically put. Thank you so much. Nigel, after 40 years in the industry, how...
The industry didn't exist when I started.
Yeah, so after establishing the industry and being in it for 40 years, how do people make fair prices?
Well, let me just... everything everyone else has said, beautiful, great. I'll just add to that by starting with the art of negotiation. And I think that Bettina's just touched on that. There's an art to negotiation. You've got to listen to what your client is talking about. Remember, your client could be a developer, it could be an architect. The architect has a client. You're in a food chain. You fit down here somewhere as a subcontractor or whatever. So that's the beginning. Listen to the client, negotiate, and find out exactly what stage they're at. Have flexible payment terms. I'm terrified when I talk to people and I hear that they do the job and then they invoice. It's like, no, 50% up front, 50-50, or we might do a 40-40-20. So then the risk, you've only got a 20% left at the end of the project, or do a day rate if the architect are at an early stage and they're wanting to use you as part of the design development. Be flexible. Now, your goal as a studio, because I mainly deal with studios, is to get as fast as possible off the project invoicing list and get yourself onto a retainer. And what I mean by that is, so we moved very quickly into an agency model whereby we were on retainer. We were kept on either a 1 year or a 3 year retainer with our client, meaning they weren't going to go to anyone else. We didn't have to look. So we worked out on a monthly drawdown of how much money we would draw down from the account. And it would be, of course, they're going to get a much better deal than if we're having to invoice each month. But we then could actually build a studio against that. You've got your labor costs covered. Everything's covered. And now you can actually start to scale up. This client is super important because you're part of the team. So get on a retainer. And I think, our studio, we finished last year on a retainer that we had for 15 years. So it's great for business, great for you, great if you're wanting to actually get a mortgage. So do that. The other side, to money, and let's face it, this is all about money. You've got to be making a profit, and you can't sour your relationship with your clients or your customers by if they're a bit late with payment or different payment terms. So what we did, or what our studio did, is we did invoice factoring. Now most banks offer this, meaning that you can sell your debt or your invoice to the bank, your business bank. They will pay you straight away, and then now that invoice belongs to the bank. So we had a case back in the recession of 2009. You had there was money troubles everywhere, and people weren't paying, and there were big architects or big developers who thought they could just screw you over. But because we had, one of the world's biggest banks as our business bank, and we were factoring, we were selling the debt to them. And then when they turned around and said, no, we've got, our client hasn't paid us or not, it's like, and the bank would say, what do you want to do? Shall we take them to court? And wasn't our problem anymore. It was a fantastic way of working, and it helped us remain stable, helped us keep a good relationship with the clients, because it wasn't the people you deal with are not the finance department, and you don't want to sell that. Anyway, so that's a bit of advice. If you can ever get on a retainer, do it. And if you are working with troublesome clients, try and talk to your business bank about invoice factoring.
Wonderful
That's it.
advice. And you just said souring your relationship to your clients. And this is a topic which is, I think this is the question that everyone is waiting for the most. I think that many artists think that they will sour their relationship to their clients or even lose the client if they try to break, let's say, never-ending cycle of endless revision rounds. Clients comes up with always something new, something happening, and at some point it's just so much work. It's like the 10th revision round, and artists feel like they cannot break it because they'll lose the client otherwise. But at the same time, they're not making profit anymore. As you said, people need to make profit. This is why we do this. So I need to hear this from all
Bettina
of you.
said it before. And you've got to understand at what stage that project is at. If it's in planning, then it's going to be, they're going to be changing things all the time. Or if it's in concept design, so work with your client, negotiate.
So yeah, let's say it's in the conceptual phase and there will be tons of changes. Then you can say, okay, then you should maybe define a price per change or per hours or something, because you cannot make like endless changes or
It's to a day rate.
Yeah, or something like this. Hannes, I saw your happy.
Yeah, no, I don't think. I mean, the nice thing most of the time with competitions or like conception phases of architecture is oftentimes related to a competition deadline, right? And I remember one of the biggest clients I ever got at Bloom Images back in the day, and that was kind of my starting card for building up the Berlin office at that time. The first job I had with them, I had plans for the weekend after, and their deadline was Monday. So I basically first call with the team, I was like, guys, I know your deadline's Monday minus Friday. And they were like, whoa, nobody's ever dared to do that on a first job. But they respected it somehow. And somehow we managed to get that done by Friday. And I think I did tiny little bits on Monday morning. But establishing certain boundaries early and being honest about, yeah, this is what I need. And I'm going to give you my everything till Friday, but respect my weekend plans here. That probably gave me a reputation of being a little bit like upfront with things. So then they know I'm not going to be the guy who fucks off on Friday and is never to be seen again without notice beforehand. That's the other thing. They knew they could also accommodate for that by Friday, and then that worked out. And they have been my clients for the better part of my Bloom Images Berlin career. So yeah, I feel honesty and expectation management, and then that comes down to communication and also a little bit to maybe the first contract. You put these things into the contract. And on the first job, the contract is kind of important because certain things haven't been established in the relationship yet. Further down the line, nobody reads the contract. Everyone sort of knows how people work and operate. And then, yeah, at best, the best clients you will have is the clients you already have, going back to what Nigel said there, for sure.
Can I just make a point that sometimes it's also okay to say no? We've walked away from clients before. Sometimes, maybe sometimes it's like what Bettina said, it's just the nature of the things. It's just there's a lot of things that are still unknowns in the process. But then there are sometimes repeating patterns amongst clients, bad patterns. And you have to understand, again, this is about money, this is about staff retention, this is about respect for yourself and respect for your staff. There are times when I think it's actually healthier for everybody in the long run to part ways respectfully and say, look, we're just not the right fit for this, right? And you always, like Ludo said, you learn to say no in a way that shows respect and shows understanding of everybody's situations. And you said, look, for us right now, we have too much work. This is dragging on. We established a schedule. We had some leeway here, but this is completely like out of a normal territory. This has broken every single boundary that we've set, and we can no longer work with you. And that's okay, because that also, again, it allows for room for new opportunities. So now you can go pursue new clients, right? And maybe there's a separate relationship there that will be better than this one. And so I think it's about also understanding that when is that red line there, right? What like, and set those boundaries for yourself and for your office. It's like, look, we can do this, but this is like an absolute no. And this doesn't respect us, and this doesn't respect our work process. And it's best to find new professional partners in this regard, I think.
Absolutely agree. And we shouldn't act like slaves in the end of the day.
Yeah.
We're people of service, we're people in the first place. And it's a transaction between people, clients and service providers, but between people, and the self-respect and respecting your own health and all of this should be there. So it's not like whatever the client says, I'll do, otherwise I'll die. No, just find a better client. I absolutely agree. Ludo, you were saying something. Sorry.
I was going to say, it's interesting about the keeping the client. You got to be careful about which client you keep, and that's very important to be able to set that boundary. Like I said, I'm always open. One thing, what I like is when a client comes to you is like they expect you to work that weekend. They come in and they say, hey, we have this job on Monday. I'm expecting you to work late hours, and they're like, well, time out. It doesn't work that way. I'm going to work as hard as I can to get you to the work that you need. But no, it does not mean that I'm going to do overtime for you. That said, there's a fine line. Again, like Mengyi said, the fine line is at some point you do have to do overtime or weekend work and stuff. And I pride myself. When I started working as a manager, I was working 120 hours a week, and I have the timesheet to prove it. That was insane, right? After that, I spent the last 25 years of my career to do everything to make sure that people work no more than 40 hours a week. And I pride myself to this. But one thing that I do say to everybody, I said, it's impossible to say there will never be overtime. That said, I will do everything for my power to fight it. But what I'm asking in return is when it happens, let's be honest to each other. Let's make it happen instead of just saying, I don't like it. Nobody likes it. So let's get that out of the discussion. And all this to bring to the client thing is to be able to say no. Is you got to be careful. 2 places that I left was because they were saying yes to everybody, and in the bad way where we had the client that says, we have 155 FX shots. We're going to give you $25,000 for this. You're like, what the are you talking about? And the client, my boss at the time, took it. And obviously that didn't go well, because you got to see the future that your whole team is now taken for this stupid job, that this guy is nitpicking everything by default, because the less they pay, the more critical they are. And that's a rule. That's such a rule. It's not even funny anymore. I thought it was a joke 30 years ago. Now it's a fact. It's the less they pay, the more they critique, and they'll pixel everything. And it's just, yeah, I'm being polite here and not using cuss word, but they are going to push the pixel everywhere. So you got to be very attentive to this. And either if you got caught in one of those, don't get back into it, right? And if you see it coming, say no. I don't care that you have nothing in front of you for the next 2 months. That thing could kill your next 2 months or your next 6 months, really, at the end of the day. And in this case, the movie that they took for $25,000, which I still don't understand how the math worked in this person. Especially, I was in the room when he said, I'm going to sign this. I was like, no, you're not. No, you're not. So you got to be very mindful of this. You got to be aware. You got to learn from your mistakes. It'll happen. You'll get that job one time without realizing you're getting that job. I'm telling you right now, it's going to happen. But that said, learn from it, right? Learn from all the signs. And then when it happens, say, hey, you know what? Timing is wrong. Don't say I don't want to do your job. Just find something else that just says timing is wrong. I've got 3 other projects going on, whatever it is. Just make up a story. I don't care. Even though you don't have 2 months of work in front of you, but it'll pay. I promise you it'll pay. The people that I've seen taking those jobs, I left those companies. It's as simple as that. It was insane. It was ridiculous. And it was stupid. They didn't learn. They're still doing this, and somehow they chapter 11 like 18 times now and whatnot, and so on and so forth. It's just like, I know you can't do that 18 times, but you get the point. It's just they keep doing, they close, one of the company closed the company, and then they reopened it, and they didn't pay people for 3 months to get back into their track from one of those mistakes. It was my life mission to take all these people out of there so I could find them jobs. I couldn't accept that somebody was going to force you to work for 3 months with no pay. Just don't fall for that, guys. I don't care how friendly you are, how close you are to the boss. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, it is a business. It is your life. It is your mortgage. At the end of the day, taking these things are not helpful. They're not beneficial to anybody. So just be mindful of that. And again, be mindful of how you do it too. Saying I don't want to work with you is different than saying it's bad timing. That's a different thing. Because that guy might come back one day with the right job. You don't know that, right? But you got to leave the door open. That's my philosophy. You got to leave the door open. But that's why I'm going to try to say bad timing. Not I don't want to work with you, even though that's what I want to say. That's not what I want to say.
So politely decline to leave the door open for potential future.
Exactly. But don't take it. Do not take it.
Yeah.
I don't care how bad your situation is. I promise you in 2 days, you'll have something else that will show up that if you took that job, 2 days later, you would have not been able to take that job. And then you're like, but that was my life dream to do this, whatever it is, right? And then you missed it because you took the 155 shot for $25,000.
Yeah, totally agree. Bettina, you're muted. Do you have something to add? And also one additional question about this. Do you also try to educate your clients? Because we should also understand that people don't always know everything when they reach out to you.
Of course.
So what do you say? You educate them.
Yeah, of course. As I try to get knowledgeable, if I have someone on the other side who I feel doesn't really understand what we are doing and what our obstacles are, it's always good to tell this, to inform people. The understanding of why we can't keep the shorter deadline or why we can't do the changes until Monday is sometimes not something we can change. And if they understand why we can't, then this is just better. I think a lot has been said. Well, we also struggle on the revision end of side, as everybody does. Sometimes I have to do revisions, or we have to do revisions that I understand. That someone turns around and says, just doesn't look convincing for that or that reason. And I look at the image and I say, well, yes, shit, that's true. And then, of course, I want the image fit for purpose. So if that happens, of course, we go the extra round. If the extra round is due to nobody dared to take a decision on the other end, or decisions are just kept open or the person in charge is not available, or stuff that I couldn't have taken into account before, I might find it a bit harder to go the extra mile and to do the 10th revision on something. So this is it's a very fluid thing. And also there's clients I really love, and of course I go the extra mile for them because it's worth it, because they accompany us for over 10 years. And then when we meet next time, I say, let's try it better this time. It was hard last time. This really depends. And one thing, sometimes it is understanding that the person on the other end is just doing his or her job. Like if you work with people, like for companies who are in marketing, it is their job to get the optimum out of a contract. And so if you say no, or if you say yes, but there's additional cost to that, they will perfectly understand. And this is nothing personal. It doesn't really have to do with what's been done so far or what's been going on in the future. It's just that they try to optimize their side of things. And they perfectly understand that you might want to respectfully optimize your side.
Yeah.
Anything else? I think it's been a lot said. Yeah, one thing, do not communicate emotionally. If there comes feedback in and you want to, crush your head on the table, don't write the email. Don't grab that phone. Just let it sit, think over it, and then communicate professionally.
Fantastic advice. Really, really good.
I didn't always, but I've learned from that.
Or rewrite the email 6 times before you send it. That's what
Exactly,
I do.
write it,
That's
but
what I
don't
do on a
send
daily
it.
basis.
Exactly that. Yeah.
Yeah, just just sleep over it.
I have to write the first.
Next
I have
day
to
it's
write the
better.
first email. I have to say all the things I'm thinking about. I just don't have it 2 lines filled up, so I don't press send by mistake. But I have to write it down sometime. It's like, but you know.
Yeah, but then save it,
Yeah.
reread it the next day, and that's just a good one.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Very, very important because.
And sometimes it's also good, sorry, to add one thing. The person you are talking to is often not the person in charge, which is adding a lot of rounds. Sometimes I don't even know that. And it just happens in the end. Now we're showing it to the business board. And you're like, well, fuck. And it's better to ask this question some in the process. The earlier, the better.
Fully agree. Folks, what are we doing now? I know, Hannes.
Can I just finish off there? What after Bettina quickly?
Yeah, please.
So I always enjoy going after Bettina because she says everything I want to say.
Sorry.
That's brilliant. I love it. The only thing I would add is that the studio, changed. The whole revisions thing wasn't working for us. And years of actually doing it doesn't work. So we threw it out and we changed to a business model where we brought the client into the process. Thereby, once a week, we have a like we do. Everyone has like internal sessions. We bring the client into that, or we bring the branding consultant, make them part of the decision making. So we'll have a weekly meeting where it doesn't matter what stage of the project we're at. So right from the very beginning, and you mentioned about education and educating your client, you bring them in from the start and they walk through the whole project. They walk through from this is how we're starting things, and they get to learn the process. And what we've discovered by working this way, even if there's nothing to show, you can at least say, hey, listen, this is what we're still waiting on this stuff from the engineer or whatever. And it's communicating, and you spend an hour or 2 hours in a session each week. Of course, there might be some revisions, but we've seen our revisions just be eliminated because they're part of the process. So by the time we get to doing finished work, there's no changes. Everyone's seen that. Everyone's being involved all the way through the process.
Wonderful advice. Really. I've been doing it also since the beginning, since I figured out that when I deliver something, then all the changes come and I have to go back and rework. So I started picking up the clients from the, angle selection phase, clay model or whatever, just make sure that they like the things that I'm doing and we're going in the same right direction, and then we can go to the next step and so on, so that we don't have to go back and make huge leaps back and rework stuff and all of this. Wonderful advice. Now, what I wanted to ask you is, like, it's almost 6. I know Hannes has to go right now. What's up with the others? Do some of you still have time for some other topics, or should we stop here? How is it with you guys?
I have another 10.
Yeah,
You have another 10
I
minutes.
have another meeting.
I have to get lunch.
Okay. So it seems like, Nigel, you're free.
Yeah, I'm quite happy, but it'd be a bit odd, wouldn't it?
I can stay for a little bit longer.
Okay, we'll stay for a bit.
It's not odd. These people here are waiting for answers, so the longer we stay, the better. But those of you who have to leave, you can just, leave, it's always okay. I'm sorry we couldn't fit it in 2 hours, but I don't want to interrupt you. You have so
That's fine.
interesting things to say. I don't want to, just say, stop. Let's move on.
I'll stick around for another 10 if that's all right.
Yeah, of course. Maybe those of you who
10 minutes.
will be going can help me with the next topic. Let's say so far we have done our revisions, our contract, and all of these things are working well. Then the client is happy. It's time to deliver. I heard Nigel say 50% before that. So how can we make sure that we get paid? Because we used to do stuff like making 4K images and saying, okay, pay the money, and I'll give you the 4K images using watermarks and stuff like this. But in the era of AI, this isn't the way to go anymore. So what do we do in order to make sure that we get paid in the end? Eventually just ask for let's say half of the money in the beginning and then the other half before delivery. And then once the money is there, just deliver the 4K images or the animation or whatever it is. Or what would you do? What would you say?
I like the 30-30-40 or something like that. Like it's something or even 40%, as much as you can before you start the work.
We
you
do
will have to
40,
invest.
20.
Yeah, that's healthy if you can get it. It's great.
40 in the beginning, 40 in the middle, and 20.
It was our recent client that was his proposal.
Wow.
Nice.
Being
That's a
part of a
treat.
big
And always, if you do good work and you have clients, I have had some clients that I've worked for years with, and basically the only way to get the last invoice paid was to get the new. I was always like, yeah, I'll do that job for you, but you still owe me from last time around. Sometimes that's your relationship. That's probably not the healthy relationship to keep, but that's sometimes how it happens.
What
With
about
certain-
PO? Does everyone do purchase orders?
yeah.
Yes, we do.
What do you mean by that?
But that's a very UK thing. It doesn't necessarily happen in Germany that way.
What are purchase orders?
Well, it's when you give a quote to a client, and they then it's an architect's office. You give them a quote, they go off to the finance team. Finance team go, right, fine, here's a purchase order. So basically, they put that amount into the drawdown of funds, and they give you the architect's purchase order number or developers. And it means that we now the customer that we're dealing with, we don't have to talk money anymore because they've already given us the purchase order. So we just go straight, as soon as we do the work, it goes straight to their accounts team. They type it in. And in the US, that happens. So all our US clients, that everything's purchase order. And it goes through. And it means that our accounts people talk to their account people, and there's a different relationship because we all get emotional. Where's my money? I'm going to kill you. Where they're just like, oh, yes, they're on holiday. That this is the payment run is in 2 weeks' time. And so everything goes like mechanics.
Yeah, being part of a bigger firm, I don't handle the money. Our team does not handle the money. It's the accounting that does that at the firm. So usually we're a line item on a bigger feed deal, if that makes sense. So that line item usually is just dust on top, so nobody really questions. It's render here with X amount of dollars, and they move on with it. So that I'm lucky enough to do this. I don't have to really deal with them. And frankly, I have not had to deal with it most of my career. I'm usually the technical guy or the artistic guy in the bag that just does what it needs to do, but somebody else takes care of the money, because I would be the emotional guy saying, where the hell is my money? So it's a good thing.
Yeah.
That's actually a good.
Yeah.
Sorry, Mengyi.
I was going to say I'm kind of like a liaison, so I have to deal with all the different departments. But usually I think it's going back to like Bettina's point, is also like knowing who your client is and where in the food chain they are. Like very often what we do is we actually subcontract the visualization studios directly under us instead of under the client, because we know that they will get paid by us sooner than the client, because there's like a lot of red tape, or it's an international client, so they have specific like financial regulations that there's a lot of layers to getting that money. So it's like talk to your client and like understand like what is sort of like the financial projection of all of this? Like, what are their schedules? Are they getting, like Ludo said, paid every month? Is this a monthly retainer? Or is there sort of like a lump sum that's coming down the line? So even if you don't get the money now, you can at least set specific expectations for when that money is coming in.
Great. So and then one very tricky question, something which doesn't happen the whole time, but when it happens, people are mostly unprepared on how to deal with the situation. This is, let's say, we did the project, client is happy, they paid, and a month later, they reach back out to us and they ask for the 3D model, the 2D Photoshop file, the prompts for the whatever. So what do we do next? Do we sell that data? Do we say no? Or do we simply give it out just so that they're happy?
Shall I jump in here?
Sure.
And so there's two sides to that. One, what is your contract? Is it a typical work for hire contract?
Let's say.
Meaning, which most of the time it is, meaning that the person who's paying, i.e. your client, actually owns legally all the data that you are working on. So you think, because this is my work, no, you don't. The person paying is the one who owns it. So you legally have to give them the work back unless you've put that into your contract. So look up work for hire. You'll be surprised by what rights you actually have. Secondly, years and years and years working with big developers and working with architects. And when we started Sinai Software, one of the first plugins that we created dealt with this exact issue, because we would, on the production studio, we're having to give, if you do a whole master plan, can you give this section to this architect or that architect? So we developed a plugin called Proxy, which is a bit like a PDF where you can actually lock it. You can security lock the work, but we also added a time lock on it. So it means that, say, your client, the developer, says, can you actually send that building to your competitors? And this happened with a big American viz company. It's been around for a long time, where they said, oh, can you send this building? So we time locked it for 3 months. We said, what are they doing? Oh, they're doing a competition. They have to do a bunch of renders. They have to do this over 3 months. So we time locked it so that after 3 months it would disappear. So check it out. That's our software. That was the whole purpose. So you are not destroying your relationship when your client says you have to, because in the past people used to sabotage the models, they'd delete the back faces, because why should I give my precious work away? It's like, this way you actually can give it, and or you can give it to, if you give it to someone you trust, you just give them the password and it unlocks and it's a 3D model again. But mostly it's giving your work away to somebody else, which you time lock. You're still honoring and you're still keeping that relationship.
Great approach. Who wants to tune in next?
Go ahead, Bettina. Go ahead.
Sorry. Well, I just don't like giving out our work, and I always try to say so. However, sometimes there's good reasons to share a model. And again, it's about talking to a client. If it speeds up things, or if you just avoid just work in general, like not on your table, but on other people's table, it just makes sense to hand out a model. Maybe you want to get paid for at least the days or the hours it takes to wrap it all up and get all the licensing correct. So there's not a straight yes or no to this, but I generally tell people that, if you want to have our work to give it to other artists doing what we could do, you need to understand that this is not something
Really want to
I'm in
happen.
favor of doing. That's stupid. And usually everybody really understands that. It's not, it's pretty straightforward. But sometimes it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Once again, situational, depending on the situation and the client relationship.
It's also if there is a competition deadline and there is like landscaping architects are doing something, we are doing renders, architect has to put it together. There's no time whatsoever. Yes, take the Photoshop file, do the color correction yourself so it's a fit. Yes, have it. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Hannes, Ludo, you're the ones who are in a hurry. What would you say?
Yeah, it's nothing we ever like to do. And also coming back to the contract, that's something I put into every German contract I send out. The 3D files are not part of our submission here. We produce images for you or a film. And what we need to do that is probably really ugly. You know, the messiness of process in whichever situation you're in, it's not something to be shared with client necessarily. Thus, whenever it comes to that request, it's a conversation to be had, let's say. Also, on top of what I just described, we are, of course, using third-party content, which we have licensed to use, but not to sell. Thus, I can't really give that to you as a client, or you have to buy that license on top, and then it becomes a whole data management nightmare that Nigel probably has a smart solution for. But even in that case, it's still a nightmare, let's face it. And I'd rather not, if possible. And there needs to be a price tag to that, because managing all of that handover and so on, and cleaning files to a point where they become usable for somebody not involved in our process is work and needs to be treated as such.
Absolutely.
And monetized at some point.
Ludo, how do you handle this topic in Organ?
Although we have a similar clause as Anis does about you're only buying the images of the film. It's a case by case basis. It depends what we're trying to give. If it's a Photoshop file, we try to bake it down to what they need it for. So if they just need to modify the people, we bake it down to just the people being on the thread layer and just send them that. We're not going to lose sleep over that. That's not it's not like. But also we work with Nuke, so I always say, hey, I'll send you the Nuke file. They're like, what is Nuke? It's always a good one. The licensing is a very, very good one, especially for 3D people. It's so often I have partner, different firm that calls me and say, well, I need all the people. I'm like, well, if you want the people, you got to pay for a license. I can't give out that license to you. It's not my license to give. It's not my license to give. And usually that kind of retracts back and like, oh crap, okay, whatever. But it's really a case-to-case basis. Very rarely do I even send anything that has preparatory stuff in it. That's very important to us. We got to bake things before it goes there. If we're going to be forced to give it out, we're going to make sure that it's baked in, so it doesn't, we don't give out anything. But it's really a case by case. We don't do it very often. I'd say maybe twice, 3 times a year max. That we have situation. Usually the no comes by itself with the licensing issue. Or when people say we own it, we're like, no, sorry, the paper says you only own the image, not the 3D work. So, it's kind of, there's all that, and now I have a full legal crew behind me that's totally happy to say, I got about 20 people behind me say, yep, no, that's sorry, that's how it works. But
good to have a legal team.
Flexibility again, to come back to Bettina's comment earlier about there's some client that we love and then we're not going to fight for it. We're just going to go ahead and give them, because we know that one, they're not going to abuse of it. They're not going to they're not going to sell it to somebody else. They're going to be, because they're coming back to us, right? So it's a relationship thing. But again, that's usually the 2-3 cases per year that happens to those special clients.
Thank you very much. And Mengyi, what about you?
We don't ever ask our vendors for anything because we can already anticipate all these responses. But also for our clients, like for developers, I think it's similar to Ludo. We make sure we strip anything that's proprietary. We tell them that it's going to be a licensing issue. If they want a specific model, we charge them just as a visualization studio does. We charge them extra for the time. If it's not in the original contract, that there's an additional modeling fee for certain assets. If it's going to go out to a visualization studio that's not our subcontractor that they want to hire, we again just make sure that we give them the file, but we make sure we simplify it to the form that's usable and keep it at that level, because at the same time, working internally and working on production, we know that the Viz Studio is going to rebuild everything anyway, right? So we just try to set the right expectations and be like, look, we'll share this, but this is the only thing that we can share with you. And it's about communication. It's about just making sure that we're all on the same page for things.
Once again, communication seems very, very important between the artist and the client. We went through almost all questions. We have still some, but we can discuss it maybe next year once again. This was a wonderful format. People are loving it. Guys, do you have any final words for the Chaos Campus community, for all those people who are absolutely soaking in everything that you say here? Mengyi, you were the last one to talk. Please share your thoughts maybe about the business side of visualization with this community, or if you just have a message for the Chaos Campus community, now is the time.
I don't know, I think my word of the year is pivot. I'm my own dictionary. So I think be flexible. Like there's a lot of change coming. Keep your eyes out. We all use the same software now. Right now, even in this group, we all do very, very different things. We're in the same room together. Talk to as many people as possible. They might not be useful now. They will be useful somewhere down the line, right? But don't go in with that intention to like get to know the person, get to know their interests, get to know their needs. And this applies regardless if you're a studio looking for work or a student graduating, getting a job in the first place. Just know what's out there. Stay informed and, find a specialization, find a niche for yourself and make yourself, that voice and a recognizable voice. And yeah, just be open, be friendly, be a cool person.
Fantastic advice. Thank you so much, Ludo.
Ditto to Mengyi. I think it's simple there. Be confident, believe in yourself, be ready for it. Just be open-minded, look forward, don't look backward, just always look forward, look at the next thing, keep informed. You don't have to read every article, but just keep informed what's happening out there. Don't be blind to what you do. So just believe in yourself, be there, have fun. I have to pride myself in the last 30 years. I've been playing every day for 30 years. So it's, I haven't had to do a job for 30 years. I've been having to have fun with a lot of cool people, very talented and cool people every day. So just find that place and have fun with it.
Thank you so much. Wonderful words. Hannes.
Yeah, I think very little to add. That was very complete. But yeah, maybe also just not just find a thing that fascinates you and you want to go find something that fascinates you want to go deep with, but also find the people you want to do that with and build those, like invest in people and relationships, coming back to that. And that will carry you so far in dark times and in great times, even the more, obviously. But yeah, definitely, build relationships. Those say technology changes and stuff like that, that's something you need for the moment, but technology will be different 5 years from now. But at best, you still have people around you that you can trust and you have fun doing stuff with. And that's all I got.
Thank you so much. Bettina.
Well, I think a lot has been said. Love what you do. Love your clients, love your team. You are together in this. It's not a single road. It's a big crossing and you have to walk that together. So it's not you only. Ask questions. Whatever you don't understand, whatever you feel weird or funny about, just ask. Don't be shy asking questions.
There is nothing wrong with that, actually. It's not a sign of...
Well, many people are really shy to ask questions.
Yeah, I think many people see asking questions as a sign of, being weak or something like this. But I think it's the opposite. It means that you are true to yourself. You're honest with yourself. You don't know something and you want to know it. It shows a great attitude.
Yeah, maybe this is about honesty. Maybe that goes very closely together. You just say that I don't know. Help me out. And maybe I can on another occasion. So I would strongly advise ask questions.
Fantastic works. Thank you so much. And the wise man, the wizard, 40
Well, I'm going to finish with the wizardy one. Actually, it follows on from what Bettina's just said. Mentoring. What Tio's doing here with the campus and actually hosting these shows and actually trying to bring people together. I, through my whole career, and maybe the others have also done, is always had a mentor. Even some old guy like me, I look to my mentors who have got me through my business life. And they could be young, they could be old, but they may not necessarily know anything about the industry, but it gives you someone to talk to. And there's a term called creative immortality. Now, creative immortality means that we have to pass this knowledge on to the next generation. I mean, when I retire, hopefully I don't, all this knowledge that I've built up is stuck in here. What's it doing? I don't need it anymore. You need this knowledge. And I think all of us here are just we're looking for people to pass on our this knowledge. It's campfire stories. It's for you to take it and run with this knowledge that we've built up running a studio or working in a big architectural practice, that it's just reach out to us. through Tio, or maybe Tio's got plans to actually start a mentoring program. But I've mentored people for years, and it's just so rewarding to see that you can actually help them along their journey. Do it for free, of course. That's what we're here for. We've built up this knowledge. Now you got to think, if you're running a studio, knowledge within a studio too is so valuable. And how do people retain that knowledge? It's like some people try to document it, but it's not. It shouldn't be up to the founders to keep that knowledge. And you think people move on, and it was always an issue with our studio, is how you get these incredible people, and all the artists around them are like sponges, and they learn and they learn, and that person can disappear now because everyone's learned, and the knowledge of the studio has been risen, and it's again and again it rises. But for us, we want to pass that knowledge on to you. So Theo, over to you.
Wonderful. I couldn't have said anything better than what you all said. It was absolutely fantastic. People are absolutely loving it. Also, thanks for your kind words towards me, or this is the whole idea of the Chaos Campus. This is why Chaos established the Chaos Campus. It's not about selling software. We never talk about this. You see, we had a show of almost 2.5 hours. We never mentioned Chaos once. It's about support. It's about helping each other grow and advance. And because we have no lobby, we have nobody to take care of our interests. It's about us to help each other. As Nigel said, let's share this knowledge because we all profit from this. Let's not just gatekeep it the whole time. So thank you so much. People are absolutely loving this session, and I think it was something that they will want to see happening more often. So if you guys are open for another session next year, I would love to have you once again. It was wonderful pleasure hanging out with you, hearing your expertise, your opinions on all of those very, very crucial topics. You did fantastic, and it was a wonderful show. So thank you very much. And to all of you watching, no matter if now or the recording later, have a wonderful rest of November. Don't forget our Remise Challenge in the end of November, and stay safe, be healthy. And I hope to see you again in 2 weeks for a show with Tom Grimes about Corona 14, and we'll do some reviewing together. And until then, don't forget to rock on and keep it real. Goodbye, my friends. It was a pleasure. Much love.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Ciao. Take care.